What if I told you that you actually never made a single decision in your entire life?
It is an incredibly bold claim, yeah.
Right. I mean, according to this 3,000-year-old framework of reality we are looking at today, the you that is listening right now.
The one actively trying to learn something.
Exactly. The you that thinks it chose to tune into this deep dive today is actually, well, completely paralyzed.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It really is. You are supposedly this entirely inactive, neutral observer, just trapped inside a highly advanced biological machine that's just running completely on autopilot.
And, it's a fundamentally terrifying proposition for the modern mind to grapple with.
Oh, absolutely.
We build our entire identities around our agency, right? Like what we do, what we build, how we react to things.
Yeah, our choices define us. That's what we are taught.
Exactly. So to be told that our core essence is a non-agent, just sort of sitting in the dark watching a movie, well, it shatters the baseline assumption of what it actually means to be alive.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are diving into a system of thought today that doesn't just ask these sort of vague existential questions. It actually dissects the universe to answer them.
Meticulously dissects it, yeah.
We are exploring the ancient Indian knowledge system known as Samkhya philosophy. And to do this without getting completely lost in the philosophical weeds, because the materials you provided, the video lecture by Shankar Santhamurthy and that dense PDF on Samkhya, they are intense.
Very dense, a lot to get through.
So we are going to distill this massive framework into three, let's say, structural pillars. First, we'll look at the actual meaning of the word Samkhya.
Right, starting with the foundation.
Then we'll get into the nature of this paralyzed spirit they call puruṣa. And finally, the mechanical engine of the material world that is actually doing all the heavy lifting, which is known as prakṛti.
And to really grasp the weight of this, I think it helps to try to visualize the intellectual atmosphere where this system was actually born.
Okay, paint the picture for us.
So, the traditional texts describe this pursuit as a holistic inquiry by a humble seeker. In Sanskrit, that's Vinaya-shalana sadhakena samagrajanasa.
Wow, that's a mouthful, a holistic inquiry.
Right. So picture a space that is constantly shifting around you as we talk. On one hand, you are standing in a dimly lit ancient library, right? You're surrounded by these fragile Sanskrit manuscripts.
I can see it. Very mystical.
But then look closer, and that library sort of bleeds seamlessly into a hyper-modern, brilliantly lit theoretical physics laboratory.
Well, I like that. A merging of two worlds.
Exactly, because Samkhya bridges the mystical and the mechanical. It is a timeless, rigorous synthesis of reality itself. It's not just poetry, it's a science of the mind.
That visual of the ancient library merging into like a particle accelerator, that is the perfect entry point, because the very first hurdle we have to clear is the name itself.
The word Samkhya.
Right. When you hear the word Samkhya, the immediate translation often points to something, well, incredibly clinical. It sounds like we're just doing math.
Yeah, the literal translation does lean heavily in that direction.
How so?
Well, the Matsyamanahapurana derives the term from Sakha, which literally means number or enumeration.
Numbering the universe.
Exactly, and there is a structural reason for that. Samkhya is famous for categorizing the entire cosmos into exactly 24 principles, or tattvas, plus one unmanifested primordial nature.
So it literally sounds like a cosmic spreadsheet.
It kind of is on the surface.
It maps out the mind, the sensory organs, the physical elements, all neatly numbered 1 through 24.
Very organized.
And because of that intense focus on numbering the universe, prominent thinkers like Dr. S. Radhakrishnan have pointed out that early scholars often just assumed Samkhya was India's version of Pythagorean philosophy.
Which is a very natural leap to make.
Right, because Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher, he famously believed that numbers were the literal fundamental building blocks of all reality, like the universe is made of math.
And that numerical precision is certainly the most visible characteristic of the Samkhya system. But the early texts reveal a much more profound mechanism at work than simply counting to 24.
So it's not just a ledger?
Not at all. The enumeration is not the philosophy itself, it is the tool. If we look at the root words of the Sanskrit term, a totally different picture emerges.
Okay, let's break the word down.
We have sa, which means perfect, and khya, meaning to declare or to state. So put them together, and sāṁkhya actually means perfect deliberation.
So wait, if I'm prepping for a big meeting, right?
No.
I might enumerate a list of action items to get organized.
Sure.
That is a spreadsheet. That's a grocery list.
Yeah.
But perfect deliberation implies something entirely different. It implies like a process of logic.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not just a cosmic grocery list. It's an active methodology for arriving at a spiritual truth.
And the Mahabharata provides a brilliant clarification on this exact distinction. It states that the followers of this path are called sāṁkhyas, specifically because they make deliberations.
They don't just blindly memorize the 24 categories for a test.
Right. They arrive at them through an intense, unyielding logical dissection of reality. The text describes it as an exposition of the self by proper discrimination.
Proper discrimination, meaning telling things apart.
Yes. You are actively determining the measure of faults, which they call dua and qualities, or gutta, by detailed division.
So it's an intellectual surgery.
That's a great way to put it.
You are slicing the universe into smaller and smaller conceptual pieces, like mind, matter, senses, objects, not to inventory the parts, but to perfectly deliberate on what is eternal and what is temporary.
You divide the illusion to isolate the truth.
Man, that is powerful. And that rigorous logical division naturally isolates the very first fundamental reality of the universe.
Which brings us to the first core principle.
Right. The consciousness itself, the spirit, which Samkhya calls puruṣa.
Yes, puruṣa.
And this is where the language of the framework becomes incredibly poetic. The Sanskrit texts don't just settle for a single origin for the word puruṣa.
They really don't.
They offer 5 distinct etymologies, 5 different angles to understand what this spirit actually is. Let's go through them, because they build this amazing psychological profile.
Let's do it. The first derivation combines puru, meaning abundant, with meaning rest or happiness.
Abundant rest.
Exactly. So puruṣa is the one who brings abundant happiness.
And right away, that challenges our modern conception of joy, doesn't it?
Oh, completely.
We usually think of happiness as something we have to chase, something we have to do, like an achievement. But here, the ultimate abundance is tied fundamentally to rest.
It is a static... The second derivation shifts the imagery a bit. It takes pura, meaning town or city, and usha, meaning aurora or dawn.
So bringing the dawn to the city.
Right. Puruṣa becomes the one who brings dawn or light to the abode.
Beautiful. And the third?
The third is puri, meaning abode, combined with shita, meaning rest or dwell.
The one who sleeps in an abode.
Yes. The fourth takes puri and adds vas, meaning enter, so the one who enters the abode.
Enter the abode, got it.
And the fifth is puri plus shaya, meaning sleep, the one who rests in an abode.
Sleep, rest, dwell. When you look at those 5 linguistic origins together, a very specific mechanism emerges regarding how the spirit interacts with the world.
It's a completely passive mechanism.
Yeah, it's all about resting, dwelling, sleeping, or just bringing light simply by being present.
There's no action involved.
Think about a highly complex, state-of-the-art smart home. That's the pura, the abode or the city. The house has its own wiring, its own automated plumbing, its own security systems, HVAC, everything.
It runs itself.
Right. Puruṣa is the invisible homeowner. He doesn't pull the wires, he doesn't fix the pipes, he just enters the house and rests on the couch.
He just dwells there.
But the very fact that he is sitting there brings the house to life. The motion sensors trigger, the lights turn on, the temperature adjusts. The dawn is brought to the abode purely because the dweller is present.
That is a phenomenal analogy. And the ancient texts use an almost identical metaphor, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Atharva Veda and the Mahabharata describe the physical human body as a holy city with 9 gates.
A city with 9 gates, meaning like our senses.
Exactly. Those gates are the sensory and functional openings of the body. You have the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, and the organs of excretion and generation.
So 9 ways for the city to interact with the outside world.
Right. The body is this bustling, incredibly active metropolis taking in data and exporting energy all day long.
And Puruṣa is just sitting inside.
Puruṣa is the great soul that resides quietly within it, pervading every single corner of the city without ever actually engaging in its commerce.
Just sitting on the couch while the city does its thing.
Now, there is another linguistic twist here that expands the scope from just the human body to the entire cosmos.
Okay, lay it on me.
The root pa means to fill or pervade, and pura means before. So the Taittiriya Aranyaka explicitly states he existed before everything, and thus he is Puruṣa.
Ah. So he was there before the house was even built.
Exactly. This homeowner didn't just walk into a pre-built house. He existed before the concept of a house was even drawn up, and his sheer, all-pervading essence is what allowed the house to eventually be built around him.
Okay, but if puruṣa is just the sleeping homeowner, I have a question about the enumeration part.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned earlier that Samkhya demands this rigorous clinical division.
Yes, the 24 tattvas.
Right. And in the sources, it says puruṣa can be viewed as comprising 6 elements, like the 5 subtle elements plus consciousness, or even up to 24 elements, absorbing the mind, the sensory organs, and the elements of nature.
That is what the texts lay out, yes.
But wait, why are we suddenly lumping the sensory organs and the mind into the definition of the spirit? That feels like we're confusing the dweller with the plumbing of the house.
And that is the exact trap the philosophy warns about. That's why perfect deliberation is required in the first place.
Oh, so it's a trap.
Well, it's the reality of our current state. When the spirit is embodied, when it is actively living inside the city of 9 gates, it becomes functionally entangled with those 24 elements.
It gets wrapped up in the wiring.
It experiences reality completely through them. The ultimate goal of Samkhya, which is laid out in verses like Samkhya Karika 18, is to strip away that entanglement.
To separate the homeowner from the house.
Precisely. To define what puruṣa is in its absolute, ultimate, isolated state.
And that ultimate state is defined by 5 absolute characteristics.
Yes, let's go through them. What's fascinating here is how absolute these terms are.
Okay, the first characteristic is sakatvam, which means it is purely a witness.
A witness. It observes the data streaming through the 9 gates, but it does absolutely nothing to generate that data.
It just watches the monitors.
Yeah.
The second is kaivalya. It is isolated or liberated.
Right. So even while residing inside the chaotic metropolis of the human body, its fundamental nature remains completely untouched by the noise. It is forever isolated.
Untouched. Okay, the third is madhyasthyam. It is neutral.
Neutrality is key here. It doesn't prefer the smell of a rose over the smell of smoke, you know?
Yeah.
It simply registers that the event is happening. No judgment.
No bias, just observation. The fourth is dhratvam. It is a seer.
It sees, it illuminates, but it doesn't process.
And the fifth. I mean, this is the one that completely breaks the intuitive understanding of how life works.
It really does.
The fifth characteristic is akartavava. The spirit is entirely inactive. It is a non-agent. It initiates absolutely nothing.
It is the ultimate paradox of human existence.
A complete non-agent.
Think about it. The spark of consciousness inside you, the very thing that makes you aware that you are alive and listening to this right now, it has never actually lifted a finger.
It has never spoken a word.
Never. It has never formulated a thought. It just watches the body and the mind do those things.
But if my deepest self, my puruṣa, is completely paralyzed, if it is just a neutral witness resting in the city of 9 gates, then who built the city?
That is the million-dollar question. Seriously. If the spirit is totally inert, who or what is moving my arm right now? Who is forming the words I am speaking to you? What is the bridge between a paralyzed spirit and a constantly moving universe?
That profound contradiction forces us to the second massive pillar of the framework.
Let's get into it.
If the spirit is inactive consciousness, there must be a counterpart that is active, unconscious mechanics.
The plumbing.
Exactly. This is prakṛti, the engine of nature.
To understand what this engine actually is, we look at texts like the Devi Bhagavata Mahapurana. Sukha Maharishi compiled this, and it features the deity Narayana explaining the fundamental nature of the universe to Narada.
A classic dialogue structure.
And true to the Samkhya method, the blueprint of the universe is hidden in the etymology of the word itself. Let's break down prakṛti.
So the breakdown of the word prakṛti reveals the actual mechanics of creation.
Okay.
The prefix pra signifies something exalted, superior, or excellent, and the root kriti denotes creation or action.
So superior creation. Put together, prakṛti represents the most excellent goddess of creation. It is the active, divine feminine principle that balances the passive, masculine principle of puruṣa.
But it's not just nature in the way we think of, like trees and oceans and mountains, right?
No, not at all. The texts are very specific that prakṛti is the state that precedes all of that. It was the unmanifested primordial cause.
Unmanifested, meaning invisible.
Invisible, formless. Before there is a tree, before there is a planet, before there is light or gravity, there is prakṛti.
It is the absolute state of potential energy,
Well,
just
yeah.
waiting to explode into reality.
Exactly. And the syllables of the word itself, prakṛti, They actually encode the three fundamental forces that make up this potential energy.
Oh, this is the gunas.
Yes, Samkhya calls these forces the gunas. They are the three threads that weave the entire fabric of reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially when you apply it to your own mind, because this ancient philosophy becomes an incredibly precise psychological tool.
It really does map perfectly onto our daily psychology.
Let's go through the syllables. The first syllable, pra, signifies sattva guna. This is the highest quality.
Right. It is characterized by perfect clarity, luminosity, and total freedom from impurity.
Clarity and light. The second syllable, kr, signifies rajaguna.
This is the intermediate quality. It is the principle of kinetic energy, of action and motion and passion.
But it has a downside, right?
A major defect, yes. Its constant motion spreads a veil over the reality of things. It creates distortion through agitation, like static on a TV.
Motion causing distortion. Okay, the third syllable, t, signifies tamoguna.
This is the heaviest, lowest quality. It is the principle of inertia. Its primary function is covering or hiding.
Hiding the truth.
Exactly. It obscures real knowledge and generates heaviness, delusion, and stagnation.
So every single thing in the physical and mental universe is made of a specific combination of these three gunas.
Every single thing.
And you can observe this mechanism operating in your own mind in real time every single day. Let's apply this to the listener right now.
Okay, let's do a real-world example.
Think about the exact moment you decided to listen to this deep dive. You sit down, you want to learn something complex, but your brain feels like it's filled with concrete.
We've all been there.
You read the same sentence 4 times and retain absolutely nothing. You feel a heavy, foggy exhaustion pulling you toward the couch. That isn't just a lack of sleep. According to Samkhya, that is tamoguna dominating your mental landscape.
Yes. The heavy thread of nature is actively hiding the knowledge from you. It's obscuring reality.
So what do you do to fight that fog? You drink 2 shots of espresso.
Naturally.
Suddenly your heart rate spikes. You open 20 different browser tabs. You are listening to the audio at double speed while simultaneously trying to answer emails and check your phone.
Pure kinetic energy.
Exactly. You feel incredibly productive. But if someone stops you and asks what you are actually learning, you draw a blank. You are moving so fast, but you are completely veiled from the truth of the moment.
And that is Rajaguna. The kinetic energy has overpowered the inertia, but the motion itself has become a distortion. You can't see clearly because you're moving too fast.
But then, an hour later, the caffeine levels out. You close the extra tabs. You put your phone in another room. You take a deep breath, and you just listen.
The static clears.
Right. Suddenly, the concepts snap into place. The ancient vocabulary makes perfect sense. There is no heavy fog, and there is no frantic anxiety. There is just pure, frictionless understanding. You have hit a flow state.
And that is Sattva-guna. The luminous, clear thread of nature is reflecting the truth perfectly.
Sattva, rajas, tamas. Clarity, anxiety, exhaustion. The interaction of those 3 gunas is what drives all evolution and all human experience.
It's a constant churning dance. And depending on how perfectly balanced or wildly imbalanced those 3 threads are, reality exists in 2 distinct states.
2 states, what are they?
The Samkhya Karika categorizes these as the manifest vyakta and the unmanifest vyakta.
The manifest is the reality we are currently sitting in. It is everything that has a form, a cause, and a limit. Your physical body, your thoughts, the device playing this audio, the stars in the sky.
All manifest.
And the philosophical checklist for the manifest is very specific. It is caused by something else. It is non-eternal because it will eventually decay. It is non-pervasive, meaning it doesn't exist everywhere at once.
Right. It's localized.
It is active. It is multiple. It is made of component parts, and it is entirely dependent.
Every manifest object is essentially a temporary knot tied in the threads of the gunas. A temporary combination.
So a tree is just a knot of gunas. A human is not of gunas.
Exactly. But if you untie every single knot in the universe, you are left with the unmanifest, prakṛti in its original pure state.
Vyakta.
Yes. The traits of the unmanifest are the exact reverse of the world we see. It is uncaused, it is eternal, it is all-pervading. It is a single, independent, and unlimited field of potential.
When you lay out the unmanifest like that, an uncaused, eternal, unlimited foundation that generates all temporary things, it sounds exactly like what Aristotle was trying to articulate centuries later.
With his concept of the unmoved mover.
Yes. He realized that if every gear in the universe is turned by another gear, there has to be a base engine that doesn't need turning. An uncaused cause.
And if we step back into that theoretical physics lab we talked about earlier, Modern cosmologists are chasing the exact same concept.
Really? How so?
When physicists try to describe the state of the universe a fraction of a second before the Big Bang, they aren't describing physical matter as we know it.
Right. Atoms didn't exist yet.
They described an infinitely dense, unified field of potentiality, a state of absolute equilibrium before space, time, and distinct particles manifested into existence.
So Samkhya was mapping the mechanics of the Big Bang 3 millennia before we had the math for it.
They used logic instead of particle colliders, but they arrived at a remarkably similar baseline.
But this brings up a massive logical roadblock for me.
Uh-oh. What's the roadblock?
Well, we have puruṣa, the completely inactive, paralyzed witness, and we have prakṛti, this unmanifest, invisible field of primordial energy.
Yes.
If the true base of nature is totally invisible and completely unmanifest, how do we know it's actually there?
It's a fair question.
We can't see it, we can't touch it. How does Samkhya prove that prakṛti exists at all? Aren't we just taking it on faith?
Absolutely not. This is where the methodology of perfect deliberation really flexes its muscles. Samkhya doesn't ask the seeker to accept the invisible universe on blind faith. It demands logical rigor.
Okay, let's hear the logic.
The philosophy outlines 3 specific, ironclad proofs for the existence of an unmanifest prakṛti. Let's go through them.
The first proof is called vyutpattibōdhaḥ, which translates to the finitude of the manifest.
Right. Look at any object in your reality. A coffee cup, a mountain, a human life. Every single one of these things is finite.
They don't last forever.
They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They are limited in their scope, and most importantly, they are dependent on something else to exist.
Right. A tree depends on soil and sunlight. The soil depends on degrading rocks and microorganisms.
Exactly. Samkhya argues that a universe made entirely of finite, dependent effects cannot be its own ultimate explanation.
If I walk into a room and find a massive, intricate house of cards, I know the cards didn't just spawn there. They were placed by a force outside themselves. They depend on the table, the gravity, the builder.
That's a good way to look at it.
But what if the universe is just an infinite regression of finite things? Like, what if it's just turtles all the way down, finite causes leading to finite effects forever and ever? Why do we need one ultimate unmanifest base?
Because that violates the logic of a contained system. If every single item in the chain is dependent and limited, the chain itself is fundamentally dependent and limited.
A chain of dependent things is still a dependent chain.
Exactly. You cannot add together a billion finite temporary things and magically arrive at something infinite and eternal.
Right. 0 plus 0 is still 0. Finite plus finite doesn't equal infinite.
The very fact that every object we encounter is finite actively points to the necessity of an infinite, unlimited, uncaused reservoir that birthed them. And that reservoir is prakṛti.
Okay, I buy that. That's a solid logical deduction. What's the second proof?
The second proof brings the focus from the macromechanics of the universe right down to human psychology. It is called sāṁkhyasya, which means homogeneity.
Homogeneity, like everything is the same.
In a way, yes. It asks a brilliant question.
Yep.
Why does the universe feel the way it does?
What do you mean?
Well, despite the absolute staggering diversity of the cosmos, from the intense heat of a supernova to the microscopic biological warfare of a virus to the emotional complexity of a human heartbreak.
Totally different things.
Completely different. Yet every single phenomenon produces one of 3 distinct reactions in a conscious observer. It produces pleasure, pain, or indifference.
Oh, wow. Wait, this maps perfectly back to the 3 gunas.
Yes, it does.
Sattva generates pleasure and clarity. Rajas generates pain, anxiety, and motion. Tamas generates indifference, dullness, and fog.
The deduction here is profound. If totally disparate objects, like a piece of music, a physical injury, or a complex philosophical concept, can all interface with human consciousness in the exact same 3 emotional dimensions, it means they must all be built from a single, common underlying substance.
They share the same DNA.
If they didn't share a fundamental root material, our consciousness wouldn't be able to digest them in the same 3 ways.
It's a cosmic homogenization. Think about baking. If you taste a cake, a cookie, and a loaf of sweet bread, and they all have a faint underlying sweetness, you don't assume 3 different miracles occurred in the oven.
No, you assume there's a common ingredient.
You deduce that sugar was a base ingredient in the kitchen before any of the baking even started.
Exactly.
Because every diverse experience triggers sattva, rajas, or tamas. The raw material of reality must be entirely composed of those 3 qualities. It's such a brilliant psychological proof.
It really is. Now, the third proof pulls back out to the ultimate timeline. It is shakti pravritta, or evolution from potency.
Evolution from potency. Break that down for us.
The traditional texts explain that at the time of cosmic dissolution, or pralaya, the vast, diverse, infinitely complex universe doesn't just vanish into nothingness.
It doesn't just blip out of existence.
No, it collapses back in on itself, retreating into a state of absolute, undifferentiated equilibrium.
So the three gunas stop warring with each other.
Yeah.
The motion, the clarity, the heaviness, they just balance out perfectly.
Yes. They return to a flat baseline. And because we know the universe emerges, evolves into massive complexity, and then dissolves back into unity, it proves there must be a potent, unmanifest state waiting beneath the surface.
Like a seed. A seed doesn't look like an oak tree at all.
Not even a little bit.
But the fact that the tree grows, dies, and produces another seed proves the invisible blueprint is always there inside the shell.
That's exactly it.
And this brings up a crucial dynamic that the video lecture we reviewed highlights beautifully. Creation in this system is not a one-time event that happened billions of years ago. It is an ongoing, continuous cycle.
Yes, the texts describe a continuous unfolding. The ancient mechanics describe how the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, utilized his yoga, his Maya Sakti, to divide himself into two.
A split reality.
The right side became the male principle, and the left side became the female principle, prakṛti.
The introduction of duality. Because the moment there is a this and a that, the perfect equilibrium of the unmanifest shatters.
The balance is broken.
And once it's broken, the gunas start violently interacting and the universe explodes into manifestation.
And this dualism is the absolute core of Samkhya. It is a Dvaitavada system. Spirit and nature, puruṣa and prakṛti, are fundamentally, eternally distinct.
Two completely separate realities.
Yes. The spirit is the paralyzed watcher. Nature is the blind, churning engine.
Which brings us back to the most urgent question of this entire deep dive.
The one we started with.
Yeah. If the engine of nature is entirely mechanical, just the blind forces of sattva, rajas, and tamas slamming into each other, and the spirit is entirely inactive, just sitting on the couch watching the machinery work, then why do we feel so much anxiety?
It's the human dilemma.
Why does human life feel like such a desperate, emotional struggle if we are truly just neutral observers? Why does it hurt?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that we struggle because of a tragic case of mistaken identity.
Mistaken identity.
According to Samkhya, the tragedy in comedy, the agony of human existence, happens because puruṣa, the pure witness, gets mesmerized by the movie playing on the screen.
The homeowner forgets he's sitting on the couch and actually believes he is the plumbing.
Exactly the metaphor. The spirit gets so entranced by the swirling, chaotic dance of the gunas, the euphoric highs of sattva, the frantic, painful ambitions of rajas, the deep, depressive slumps of tamas, that it forgets it is isolated.
It gets lost in the sauce.
It really does. The conscious witness starts to believe, I am anxious. But it isn't. The mind, which is just a machine made of prakṛti, is vibrating with rajasic energy.
Right.
The witness believes, I am exhausted. But it isn't. The body, another machine of prakṛti, is heavy with tamas.
So the conscious part of me isn't actually tired. It's just watching a body that is tired, and it gets confused.
Precisely. You identify with the vehicle instead of the passenger.
So the entire goal of this philosophy, the whole reason a humble seeker undertakes the perfect deliberation we started with, is to untangle that psychological knot.
That is the whole point of the 24 tattvas.
You use your intellect to forcefully divide reality, reminding yourself over and over, I am not the activity of nature. I am the isolated, neutral witness. I am puruṣa.
It is the ultimate cognitive reframe. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable engine of prakṛti, and you simply resume your rightful place as the serene observer.
So what does this all mean for you? For you, the listener tuning into this right now, trying to navigate a world that demands your constant attention and reaction.
It's a loud world out there.
It is. This isn't just ancient theory. It is an incredibly sharp tool for survival. When you are overwhelmed by a flood of information, or you're trapped in a high-stakes meeting, or just buried under the holy fog of daily life, Samkhya gives you permission to step back.
You don't have to engage with every wave.
You don't have to become the chaos. You can recognize that the anxiety, the speed, the date, it is all just prakṛti. It is just the gunas doing what the gunas do. They crash into each other.
It's just the weather.
Yeah. You can choose to be the puruṣa, the calm, abundant, isolated witness sitting inside the city of 9 gates, simply watching the weather roll through.
It is a profound mechanism for finding peace in the middle of a storm. But, as with any framework that cuts this deeply into the nature of reality, resolving one paradox usually gives birth to another.
Oh, of course. We can't end a deep dive without leaving a loose thread to pull on. What's the paradox?
It comes back to the very act of seeking. If puruṣa is completely inactive, a pure, neutral observer with zero agency, completely untouched by the suffering of the world.
Right, totally paralyzed.
And if prakrti is completely insentient, a blind mechanical engine without consciousness or care,
Just gears turning.
then where does the desire for liberation actually come from?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is a jagged piece of logic. If the spirit can't act and nature can't think, how did the desire to separate the two ever arise in the first place?
Where did your desire to press play on this audio and learn something new today actually originate? If the pure you is just a paralyzed witness and your brain is just a mechanical combination of energetic threads, whose will is actually driving the search for truth?
Man, that is the exact kind of question that forces the perfect deliberation to continue long after the audio stops.
It keeps you thinking.
It's a monumental puzzle, but exploring the pieces fundamentally changes how you view the whole. Thank you for handing us this stack of profound material. And as you step back into the chaotic spinning engine of the manifest world today, take a second to pause. Observe the gates of your own city and ask yourself, who is actually watching the show?